In chemistry, you're going to be putting a lot of numbers into formulas. And in order to put those into formulas, we have to make sure they're in the right unit. So a lot of times we have to convert units from one into another. And this method, dimensional analysis, is the scientific way to cancel units and convert one measurement into another. One way to start with dimensional analysis until you become an expert at it is to use train tracks. And I'm going to show you how this works. In our first example, we're going to convert 5.0 kilometers into miles. To do this, you start by writing down the number you're given, 5.0 kilometers. Notice I put it over 1 because it's a whole number. Now here's the key to dimensional analysis. In order to cancel out the units, you write the conversion factor in a way that the units are on opposite sides of the train tracks, or the fraction. So 1 mile equals 1.609 kilometers. I'm going to put the 1.609 kilometers on the opposite side of the 5.0 kilometers. What this allows us to do is cancel out the units. So I put a little slash through the units. Notice I didn't touch the numbers, just the units. Now what you do is you look and see what units you have left over after you've crossed the other ones out. And ours is miles, which is exactly what we wanted in our answer. So what we do now is, since it's set up that we have our exact unit we need, we just need to do the math. So the way we do this is we multiply the things on top and we divide the things on bottom. So I'm going to start with the 5.0 kilometers. And I'm going to divide that by 1. Then I'm going to multiply it by 1. And then I'm going to divide by 1.609. And that's going to give us an answer of 3.1 miles. Notice the units are the same as what we wanted in our answer, and the only units left after we've crossed all the other units out. In this next example, we're going to convert 17 quarts into liters. Now you can't do this in one step because of the two conversions I have on the right. There is no direct conversion from quarts into liters, but there is a conversion from quarts into gallons and a conversion from gallons into liters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down that 17 quarts, like so. Notice it's a whole number and it has a 1 on bottom. And since the quarts there is on top, I'm going to put the 4 quarts on bottom. And then you notice that they cancel out. Now I've got my units in gallons, but my answer wants it in liters. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more train track, and that would be the 3.785 liters is equal to 1 gallon. Notice the gallons are on opposite sides. And all of the units have canceled out except for liters, which is what we want in our answer. So now let's look at the math. So I start with 17.0. I divide by 1. I multiply by 1. I divide by 4. I multiply by 3.785. And I divide by 1. And that gives me an answer of 16.1 liters. Your third and final example is one with density. Density is a way of converting a mass into a volume or a volume into a mass. In this example, we have a 2.000 liter bottle of mercury, and it has a density of 13.6 grams per milliliter. We want to know how much it'll weigh in grams. The first thing I want to point out is how the density is written out. 13.66 grams per milliliter. If you look at the conversion, I've written it out as the same as 13.66 grams equals 1 milliliter. So the way we start this out is to write down what we have. We have a 2.00 liter bottle of mercury. Notice I put it over 1 because it's a whole number. And the second thing we need to do is to convert that liters into milliliters because our density has milliliters in its units. So I know there's 1,000 milliliters into 1 liter, and I need to make sure that the liters are on opposite sides of the train tracks. Now we have our units in milliliters, and now we can use the direct conversion of density to use that to convert the milliliters into grams. So if I'm going to write out the density, I am going to put the milliliters on the opposite side, like so. Now I have the milliliters canceled out and the liters canceled out, and the only unit I'm left with is grams. And since that's the answer we want, we can start doing the math. So I start with 2.000, I divide by 1, I multiply by 1,000, I divide by 1, I multiply by 13.66, and I divide by 1. And that gives me an answer of 27,320 grams.